Hi, thanks for joining. I often hear people saying that you have to do the inner work. You have to get to know yourself better and you have to heal parts of you. What does that look like? You get so many times you'll get told that that's what you need to do, but you don't know how to do it. You don't know where to start. And I'm going to use some examples today on what it looks like when you how your life changes once you are aware of the way that you think, and then when you do the inner work, and then how you end up thinking further down the track. There are so many different ways. Different things are going to work for you in different ways. Some people can meditate and find that to be so successful. They can put a guided meditation on at night time before they fall asleep, and then they can actually stay focused and listen. And there are other people that can't stay focused. For the life of them, their mind will just not focus on, and they drift off to, or they don't even drift off to sleep. They'll drift off and think about, did I unload the dishwasher? Does the car need registering tomorrow? Like, their mind can't stay focused enough on a meditation. So as beautiful as it is, it doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes with people like that, doing something like putting some relaxation music on and colouring in like those like mandalas, I think they're called. You know, when you get a pattern book and you just colour them in, if you do that, so you're actually doing something with your hand and you've got relaxation music playing in the background, that can allow your mind to just wander to thinking about different things and coming from a more calmer place. So that may work for you. But I find EFT tapping one of the best things because it's not long, it doesn't take long. And the whole idea of tapping is it's touching pressure points in the body. So there's the karate chop point here. This is kind of using a combination of acupressure and a study of the most important points in our body that will help us reprogram a thought. So it always starts off with a tapping there. It moves to that little point there, right where the eyebrow starts. It goes to the temple. It goes to the cheek, top of the cheek, under the nose, chin. Some people do it here on the collarbone. I've seen other people do it here on the collarbone, under the arm, just there, and then on the top of the head. And it goes in that cycle. And you say the words that whoever you're watching doing the tapping. And the first part of a tapping is first of all, it's kind of negative because you're bringing up the awareness of how you think. So if there's a belief in your system of, let's say growing up, every time you went to do something, a parent said, oh no, you can't do that, you're not good enough for that. Or no, they didn't want you to do it. So you were continually told you couldn't do something. So there's this belief that as an adult that you can't do it. So you'll look at different career choices or different jobs, and you'll go, no, I can't do that. Straight away, that belief will just say to you, no, I can't do that, because it's there. That belief is inground in you. So when you're tapping, then the first bit that will come up is the awareness of, I can't do that. And you just I've always believed that I can't do that. Even if I did try to do that, it would end up in failure. So as you're tapping, you're telling yourself the belief, right? You're bringing it up. That's what it is. And as you tap, you start to then tell yourself a different story. But I'm very intelligent. You can start tapping, saying, I'm very intelligent. I can read something and understand it. I can read instructions and build something. I do have that intelligence there. And then you start bringing up points in your life where you actually have really been successful. Like things you have accomplished, to remind you that does not have to be your belief. So then you start to shift it into, well, these are things I'm noticing where I have actually accomplished things. And then the last bit of the tapping is looking forward to, well, I'm going to do this. I can do this. It's just a total, I can do this. I don't have to limit myself. And you tap on, I can do it. And it is reprogramming that thought. But it does take repetitive, no, I'm not going to try that big word. I was going to say repetitiveness. Got it? To change the thought, because the thought's been there for a really, really long time. So I find that to be one of the most really useful tools, because most people can do EFT tapping. Most people can follow. There's two people I love on the YouTube. There's Melanie Moore and Brad Yates. I love both of them. They're a bit different, but I just love listening to. So they do on so many different topics. They'll tap on self-worth. They'll tap on money problems. They'll tap on weight problems. They'll tap on any kind of belief that you've got stuck in your head. They'll tap on it. So you just go through their pages and find the tapping. And then I suggest that you do it every single day for at least a month. Sometimes I've tapped for 3 days in a row and seen instant results, but I'm so used to tapping. I just love tapping. Also, there's journaling. Like, once you write something on paper, get it out of your head, because you know when you're thinking about something, it's going around and around and around in your thoughts. It doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't really solve anything. It's just like a worry. When you get a piece of paper and actually write on the paper, this is how I'm feeling. What could I do about this? And then try to answer it yourself, because your own higher consciousness has all the answers. So when you get it out of your head onto paper and you're reading it back to yourself, it's almost like a third person's involved. So you can read what you've written down and then wait. Sometimes an answer can come back straight away, and it might not be the answer you like. Quite often you can write, well, I could do this, and then all of a sudden you'll go, but I don't want to do that. I could do this, but I don't want to do that. But then in the next sentence you write, well, what is something else I could do that I would like? And sometimes if that answer doesn't come straight away, just leave it. Because I've left stuff for 3 or 4 days and been doing the dishes in the kitchen, and all of a sudden pop into my head of a solution. And it's like, and it's always like, I got it. But it never came earlier when I needed it to. It comes later on. So it's just I think it comes when you're ready to hear it. Because quite often we're not ready to hear stuff. So they are like, when someone says to do the inner work, that is doing the inner work. That is like the meditation, the EFT tapping, that's journaling, that's physically doing it. And just being aware of what it is you're trying to change. Really get clear on what is the belief. Once you get that clear, like I was always told that I wasn't good enough. I was always, in sport, I was always put at the back, or I was picked last. Or I did dancing lessons and they put me in the back row. They never put me at the front. I always was under the impression that I wasn't as good as the other people in the front, because they were in the front, they must be a lot better than me. They got picked first, they must be better than me. That belief. So what happens is when you do the meditation or the tapping or the journaling or all three, when you do that inner work, you start to see the belief shift, and you don't see it like that anymore. You start to go, well, I was still part of a team. Without me in that team, it wouldn't have worked. I was still needed. I was still a vital part of that team. You start looking at it from a more positive perspective rather than being down on yourself. In relationships, if you have been in a relationship and you were married, or you're in love and you spent a long time with somebody and they suddenly left you and you had this horrible feeling of rejection. And then you got through it, you worked your way through it, and you met somebody new and it happened again, or there's this constant cycle of rejection. When you're stuck in that rejection, all you can think of is, I want them back. I want to prove to them that I am not the person they think I am. I've changed, and I want to show them how changed I am. I really need them back. It becomes like a desperation of needing to prove to them that especially when a relationship falls apart. The first few emotions is maybe you want to blame them. Maybe you're looking at them saying, you're the one who did this to me. You're the one who was the problem. But after you start doing the inner work, you start looking at yourself and going, well, hang on. What was I contributing to that relationship? And if they're not somebody that wants to stick around with me, then why am I so desperate to get them back? Why can't I find my own worth in myself? And there's this really great little exercise that if whatever you want to give to another person and they're not accepting it, you give it to yourself. So if you want to give love to that person and they're throwing it away, you give that same love to yourself. And especially go back to sit with yourself when you're in that thing of feeling, I really want to give right now, I want to give so much of my heart to that person and they're rejecting it. Sit with that feeling and then try to go back to another time that you felt that. And see in your head, see that little story and go, oh yes, I felt that then. And then go back again. Go back further than that and go right back to when you were a child and you had made something special for your parent on Mother's Day or Father's Day, and you gave it to them and they didn't appreciate it. And it just goes back to that point of, I wanted to give so much of my heart to that person and they rejected it. And I was just left there not feeling loved in return. In each of those cases, you imagine yourself, your today self, hugging that person at that age. So if you're visualizing a 5-year-old child who's just given their mum a Mother's Day present, she didn't appreciate it. If you yourself today, in your mind, you hug that 5-year-old child and thank them and give them the love that they didn't get from the other person. And then you go to when you were a 28-year-old and you were rejected by somebody and you use your today self to love that person. It starts to use, that's you giving yourself love. And when you keep practicing that, it's always practice. When you keep practicing that, you learn to just love yourself in your own happiness. And if somebody came along in your life and it was all working out great and they left again, you're fine with it because you see it on such a different level. You're like, I know I can be happy in myself. I don't need them. I'm not dependent on them to make my happiness. So you see and you actually attract different kinds of people into your life then, because you attract people that it's not going to be a drama or it's not going to be a toxic relationship. It's going to flow a lot better. That's what the work does. Or it's a lot about judgment. If you grew up listening to, when you're a little kid and you're sitting around a table with adults and you listen to the conversations that they're having, if you're hearing the adults making judgment, like they're talking about a specific person who has lost all their money because they couldn't run their business properly, and they're all making comments like, well, they should know better. They were given all that money, especially like they were given that farm. I heard this conversation when I was young, and it was a conversation with adults. I was only like a teenager, and they were saying this family were given a property, given a farm. It had been passed down through centuries and centuries, this farm. So they didn't have to buy the farm. This is the conversation I'm hearing. They didn't have to buy the farm, and they ruined it, and they went bankrupt, and they lost the farm. After 6 generations, they lost that farm. Now, as a young person listening to adults making this judgment, a belief forms in my mind that it is so wrong to not You have to be successful. To be accepted in this world and for people to like you, you have to be successful. You have to make a lot of money. That it's a belief that just forms in there. So as your life goes on, if you find yourself in a position where you have failed at something, or a business went broke, or you tried to do something and you just couldn't make it happen, instantly that thought comes back of, I'm not good enough in the eyes of those people. Because remember, they taught me to believe, if you can't be successful and you can't be wealthy, you're nothing. People don't like you. And it's just this stuck belief. When you can do that work, when you've done the work on yourself and you've realized that it was all just part of an experience for your own personal growth, for your soul to have experienced what it has needed to experience, and when you are okay with it all, you just come to this sort of peace, like it happened, and it's an acceptance. Then you'll find when you're in a situation where you've gone out for coffee with somebody and you hear somebody saying, oh, I'm beside myself with my son. He's 40 years old. He has no wages. He lives from week to week. And when you listen to them bagging their own son because their son is not being the person that their belief is, and you're listening, if you were stuck in your old way of beliefs, you'd be listening to that story thinking, oh my God, I'm like that. She would be so disappointed in me. I'm exactly like her son. I just live from week to week. I'm not successful. I can't get anything right. If you were still back in your old belief system and you were listening to that, that's how you would think. But when you do the meditation work, when you do the tapping, when you do the journaling, when you get to a really comfortable, loving place within yourself, and you just know that it was all just experiences that have molded you today, when you listen to that story today from this different space, you start to see the person talking and you go, that's just their belief. They are stuck in that cycle that I used to be stuck in. They're stuck in that cycle of judgment. They're stuck in that cycle of they just think that they have to do what they were taught. And they're also stressed to the eyeballs themselves because things aren't going the way they want them to. But you see it. You just sit there and you go, that's just your belief. It's not mine. Your belief is not my belief. That's just the way you're seeing the situation. And you can actually see both sides of it because you've been through so much. You can understand where the son is at. You can understand where the mother is at because you've seen both sides. But there's just this understanding and a compassion, and no need to turn it back onto yourself, and no need to go, oh, well, I'm like that. I'm that unsuccessful person, and put yourself down. It goes away. It just goes away. You just start to see things on an entirely different level. And you even find that, especially if you've been trying to conquer something, like you're really trying to conquer something, and you do the EFT and you do the meditations or you do the journaling, you're doing all this inner work on yourself, something will come up in the universe. Some people want to call it a test, but something will come up and it's kind of testing you to see, am I going to fall back into the way I used to look at things, or am I going to continue on being positive and seeing it from this new perspective? And a lot of times when that happens, you can quickly slip back. It's very easy to slip back into a past belief system. But you can also be very quickly aware, I just realized my first thought when that happened, I went back to that past belief, but I saw it. And I'm not doing that. You start saying, I'm not going down that path again. I'm not going to be self-destructive again. I'm going to do it this way. I've learned to do it this way. It's okay. It was just a quick thought that I went back to that past, but that's okay. I can see there's a better way of doing things. And then you're on your way again. And that's the biggest difference. That you will notice that is the biggest difference about yourself. A lot of this comes with age. You know, we get wiser as we get older. We've been through so many experiences. We're tired of going through experiences, so we kind of let them go. But when you are in that cycle, when you're in a circle and you feel like you're on a Ferris wheel or a roller coaster and you can't get off, that's when you have to pinpoint what is it? What is that belief? First of all, get very, very clear with what is that belief that I'm trying to shift. Is it I'm not good enough? Is it I don't feel successful? Is it a judgment about, like, what is it? Get the belief first. And that's when you can work on do the tapping on the belief, like continually do the tapping and shifting it. And you'll see it. You'll see the change. You'll start to go, wow, I would have used to react this way, and now I don't react at all. I react either a better way or I just don't react at all. It's really obvious. So that's what it means to go through a growth, go through a spiritual growth, go through an awakening. It's an awareness and then a willingness to change it, and then seeing and just being very, very clear on, wow, I would have totally done that differently in the old days, but I do it differently now. That's what it is. That's all what doing the inner work gets for you. So I hope that's helpful for you.